Welcome in and Merry Christmas. I know it's Christmas Eve, so you're all getting ready or you're already watching whatever it is you're watching. You're just cemented into your spot where you're going to watch football for the next however many. So if it's still early and you're still watching this ahead of Christmas Eve, then congratulations, you've made it. If not, then good luck. It's going to be a long couple of days with a lot of food, a lot of drinking, and a lot of football. That's why we're here, by the way, the latter part of that. So hit the thumbs up button, please, if you can. Subscribe, please, if you can. And on top of that, we're going to tell you about what's going on here at BetMGM. We're going to build this awesome parlay here for you. And we're going to tell you about final days or so that you can take advantage of this pretty cool offer over at the Discord. So let us start first and foremost with the Tennessee Titans. Now, again, we're building a three-leg parlay here. So it does mean no good to lay a hook on a parlay. On top of that, what I'd really like to do here is just take Tennessee to win this game outright. And immediately, well, what about Ryan Tannehill? He's shut down and Malik Will. Okay. I don't think there's any real drop off from what you're getting offensively on the Titans going to their backup quarterback. It's not a knock on the career of Ryan Tannehill, but this offense just wasn't really clicking and cooking the way that we've seen it. You need somebody at least to be mobile to get around the lack of protection. So you have got that with a young quarterback here. Now, the flip side is what's going on the other side with the Titans or the Texans, pardon me. This is desperation mode for the Tennessee Titans. The Texans have covered each of their last two games, and they've had chances to win each of those games. 17-point dog at Dallas, 14-point dog at home versus the Chiefs. They had fourth quarter leads. And what's going to happen? People are going to jump right back on.
Yeah, don't throw him hot yet. That energy, no doubt.
You make it sound so fun, though.
It is actually, and we like it really is. Now she's at an age now where we just do like fun shit all the time. Not, she's not playing soccer or whatever, but we do fun. I take her to like the kid gymnastics class and stuff. It's fun now. The first few months objectively suck. They don't do anything.
I have to just watch you all the time in this
and cry and it up. If anyone tells you that the first few months are good, they're just flat out. Any guy, they're just lying. I couldn't wait to get through. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL GPP or Tournament Strategy Show. for a special little slate, Saturday, Christmas Eve, 10 games to talk about. And I'm very happy to be here for a couple of reasons. First off, to have all of you guys watching with us as we send you off into the Christmas weekend. Second, because if we were ever going to do a tournament strategy show, it should be a week like this where the weather is going to wreak havoc, and we got to discuss that. But most importantly, I have Eric Lindquist with me for the first time that we've been doing an NFL show in over a calendar year. What's up, brother? Glad to be doing this.
Yeah, excited to do this. There's a lot of responsibilities going around here. We've got videos to do. We've got, we're filling in places that we might not normally be, such as this one. But this was one I was excited to see on the calendar, just because, once again, we haven't done a show in forever. We used to do a Wednesday show, Matt Kajeski, 3-man roundtable every single Wednesday last NFL season. But good to be back. Good to be talking NFL, not on an NFL Live Before Lock, kind of dive into the weeds a little bit more.
It's going to be fun, man. And hey, I have one thing to say, and this should not be offensive to you. I don't want you to take this as, I mean this. It's no. It's not an insult, but you'll take it that way. I was watching a political debate the other day on YouTube.
Okay.
And one of the people on it was Will Kane. And I had it on in the background as I was working. And I swear, dude, every time he spoke, I thought that it had auto shifted to like NBA Live Before Lock and Eric Lindquist was on it. Listen, this doesn't mean you share any, whatever. Like it doesn't, whether you do, whether you don't, none of that matters to me.
No.
Your guys' voices are so eerily similar. I would ask anyone to put on a YouTube video with Will Kane, just find one. Okay. Former ESPN, now Fox News and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Political pundit commentator.
Good hair.
Not a bad looking guy. And just put it on in the background or like close it, whatever. And picture who you're listening to. It is you to a T, man.
It's ridiculous. Well, again, I'll take the ESPN side of it. I think that's all right. Again, political affiliations, politics or whatever at this point in time, we can all get along, right? Everybody's getting along great. But there was the Wisconsin, who's the guy who's the VP candidate? I think it was with, I can't remember who it was, but he was the Wisconsin guy who was the VP guy, and everybody thought that we were related. I can't remember who it was. This is like 10 years ago. 12 years ago. He didn't end up becoming VP. So
Hillary was Tim Kaine. And then, so it would have been.
Who was the guy? It would have been on the Republican side because it would have been Obama. Was it John McCain?
Well, hold on. It must have been Mitt Romney's running partner because because John McCain was Sarah Palin.
Correct. Vice president partner. Yeah, 2012. This is 10 years ago. It was Paul Ryan.
Oh, yeah, Paul Ryan. Yeah.
Everybody thought I was legitimately Paul Ryan's child.
I could see former Speaker of the House. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that for sure.
Great to have a lot of political tie-ins. I look and sound like that guy. That sounds a little disingenuous because, like, I don't know. Do you want to be? I'm far more honest than I feel most politicians would be.
Yeah, but it's not about it's not. It might have just been like mannerisms or whatever, or voice. The way it's just something like that. But it doesn't mean you share the same ideologies as them.
Missed my calling is what it was. Go back in time. I do have a fun story if we got like
I think you probably would have been a decent politician. I don't know if you're slimy enough, but I think you could get up there and sling some words.
Yeah. So I grew up in South Dakota and moved out to California here, 12 years ago now. But growing up, one of our neighbors was John Thune, who's a state senator from South Dakota, close friend of my dad's. Like they've just been buddies forever. Don't always see eye to eye on everything, but that's kind of the way the world works. But John Thune, good buddy. He had a daughter that was my age, whatever. Come out to California. The very first time I go with my wife to a Dodger game, she gets the Warner Brothers tickets. She was working at Warner Brothers, and we are right behind home plate.
Ooh.
And who throws out the first pitch at the game? John Thune. I start screaming as he's throwing out the first pitch, and I'm like, John, he's like, Eric, what are you doing? And he comes up to the cage. We take a picture. It was unbelievable. So the very first time I'm ever remotely close to home plate at Dodger Stadium, I know the guy throwing out the first pitch. It was wild.
That's awesome, because I bet a lot of people that didn't even know who he was, let alone know him. Right?
Yeah, he was a guy that was in the circulation for, hey, maybe he'll run for president, but I don't think he's ever really had that kind of ambition for that role, because you got to be insane to want to be a president.
Yeah. You have to be a straight narcissist or sociopath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
no
dead.
regard for what
or
you
dead. All right. So let's talk about some football. Very happy to have you guys with us. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening after the fact, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you're on this week. What are you doing differently? We're talking tournaments here. It's going to be fun. Eric filling in for Alex this week. Really, this is kind of like an impromptu show anyway, because we've had back-to-back Saturday slates. We got a lot to get into, just a crazy amount of weather. And I'm not talking about last night's weather, in East Rutherford. I'm talking about bone-chilling, frigid temperatures with massive winds, -20 wind chills. Like, dude, these are some crazy, crazy games we're going to be getting into.
Yeah, my brother was supposed to come out to California for Christmas. His flight got canceled out of South Dakota, tried to go to Minneapolis, Kansas City, tried to go anywhere to fly out. And all these flights are canceled until at least Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Ended up kind of shooting that and having that be kaput. But legitimately, you see pictures of guys throwing boiling hot water up into the air, and it freezes instantly.
I saw that. It turns to snow.
I was just like, oh shit, I forget what that's like out here in old SoCal. I split time between here and Arizona. It's just like, I don't really remember what that was like, but I know when you sit back and think about it, that feeling, that like hard hitting, crazy feeling that you get where you just got to kind of go numb when you get hit in snow, when you get hit in cold weather like this. It is not your normal weather. And I kind of made fun of it on Twitter the other day, because obviously you look at this weather forecast and it was going to be ridiculous, but now we have to talk about it in terms of projection. We have to talk about it in terms of how you want to go about stacking. Like, the double stack in a cold weather game almost feels impossible to get to in any of these spots. Like, you really have to be very selective about how you want to have exposure to these games, because I do want to have exposure, but I don't want to necessarily just say, oh, I'm going to play Nick Chubb from Cleveland. Oh, I'm going to play, specific guys where it's like, of course they make sense. They're going to be carrying the football, but I want to try to find exposure other ways. So it's a very, very fun tournament slate.
It is. Look, there are certain spots, I'll be completely honest, and let's dive straight into this. Also, if you guys are listening in podcast form, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe if you haven't. Leave a rating and a review. We see you out there. Don't worry. I know you're not on the YouTubes, but we know you're out there, and all your support during this holiday season too. A simple little, hey, these guys are good, or I hate them. Either way.
Is this the Will Kane show?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's on with Will Kane? He's not very smart. Anyway, the quarterback position, I think
you're
it's
lovely.
Perfect.
Stop it.
It's perfect. Hey, thanks, man. Perfect to get into this spot, because everything ties together from quarterbacks when we're talking stacks and everything here in these games. Now, like Houston, Tennessee, I can probably comfortably wipe these quarterbacks off the board with Malik Willis, and then Davis Mills. Who knows? Maybe Jeff Driscoll comes in for 7 more attempts. I don't know, but this is right now. If the forecast holds up, it's going to be the coldest game at kickoff ever played in Tennessee Titans home game history. So there's another one between two teams that generally play in warm weather. Cleveland, like Andy Dalton, I can just straight get away from that. He has no Jarvis. He has no Chris Olave. And then Deshaun Watson, I'll let you take over from here. But just the point I'm making is I do think there are certain games where the quarterbacks already probably wouldn't be great in decent weather, and the bad weather just makes them that much more unappealing.
Yeah, so the first guy that you said is actually somebody that I do plan on having exposure to, and it's probably
just from the rushing upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Houston is so bad when it comes to stopping the run. Like, we're talking apocalyptically bad. And Derrick Henry, everybody's seen the numbers. It's no surprise. He absolutely torches the Houston Texans. I think there's no question that he is a fantastic play by any metric. Cold weather, going out there in Tennessee. Yeah, freezing cold weather there in Tennessee by their standards. But Malik Willis, that is kind of his calling card. And I don't think we necessarily got him unleashed. You have Ryan Tannehill. he was basically, Malik Willis was like a rental for those little bits of time. We saw him, week 8, week 9, didn't really have to do much. Kansas City, they tried to grind out that football game, but we saw some decent rushing attempts out of him, 5 and 8. Not really anything massive there, but you rip off one big play against Houston and you're kind of there. He's sub 5K. I think that there are paths to doing that. And the main reason that I have exposure to him and I like it is that if you're not Minnesota and you're not New York, you're basically in a spot, or if you're not Dallas and Philly, like you're in these domes, everything else is just shitty. And at that point, I want to find ways to get different and get away from those kind of games. We have a 100 rating in the top stacks tool with the Minnesota Vikings, with that passing attack. It is by far going to be the spot that most people want to target the most. You're going to have Dallas and Philly. I'm going to talk about Gardner Minshew here as well. But like Malik Willis is a guy that I can envision a game script where he gets there for you. It's a 60-yard rushing touchdown. I think you don't want to look into anything else. Ryan Tannehill's done. Okay. So Malik Willis is there. They're going to try to develop him. They are still trying to sneak in. And I think that he rips off a big play. Would not be shocking against Houston.
It wouldn't. And interestingly enough, one of the games that Tannehill was out earlier this year was against Houston. So Malik Willis started against Houston. That was the Derrick Henry 219-yard game. Well, he's got 200 plus rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 against Houston.
Jesus.
I get what you're saying about Willis. I mean, look, I think we both agree they're not going to use him to throw the football a lot.
I'm not attacking him.
It has to be on the ground. The ownership disparity between him and Gardner Minshew is what makes it interesting. Like if Minshew's at 9%, I still full disclosure, like Minshew more in this spot because he's just has an amazing team built around him and they have 1,000 weapons at his disposal and they're going to be inside. Not that he's running, but I still think there's plenty of outs there. But yeah, the ownership is definitely playing a factor. I think this is one of the few weeks where you actually have 2 sub 5K guys that you could say to any extent, whether it's they're really great or they're doable in a tourney, like in a Millie Maker. Usually you don't get 2 sub 5K guys that are viable whatsoever.
Yeah. And this is the guy that I would, if the slate started this second, based on the ownership, I would have the most exposure to Gardner Minshew out of any quarterback on the slate, which sounds crazy.
It opens everything up. And he's can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I asked this to Neil or to Ben, and I asked it to Matt yesterday. I'd love to get your thoughts to see where everyone comes in on this. Let's say that Minshew was the starter since week 1 on the Eagles. Like there's no Jalen Hurts, but he has all the same offensive line, same weapons, same everything. What is his price coming into this game?
6,500.
Okay. All right. Ben had 59. Matt had like 56. I had 6K. So
I'm going a little bit higher, mainly because I think that this just becomes a pass-happy offense. And Jalen Hurts, I think one of the difficulties for some people this season, and for me, I just started doubling him a couple of weeks ago, specifically that Tennessee spot. Tennessee, a notorious pass funnel. It made all the sense in all the land to really stack up Jalen Hurts. And Philadelphia, I props to your guy, props to Sirianni, because it seems as though he plays to the strengths of his players. And he plays to the weaknesses of the opposition. And I think if you're going to get after Dallas here in this spot, I think Gardner Minshew is going to be able to air out the football quite a bit. And I feel very confident in saying that, like, yes, Dallas is 3rd in terms of pass defense, but you have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. That is such an easy double for me. And I don't think I'm going to be playing Gardner Minshew without that double. I think people are going to be single stacking him quite a bit. And part of the reason I'm more comfortable just auto doubling in this spot is you get exposure to the entire offense in a dome as opposed to everything else. I just kind of want the entire game environment as opposed to like just a piece here, a piece there. I think it's one of the more clear-cut things. You can maybe get to some Goddard. I'm curious what that snap count and ownership is going to be because right now there are sites, I mean, he's double digits in spots as well. But I think I'm just going to be playing a lot of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith along with him. I think he's fully capable of getting it done in that regard. Maybe Miles Sanders has a big game here, but I expect Gardner Minshew to be very serviceable right from the get-go.
I'm with you. I think Goddard could be full go too, because he was almost activated last week. Like he was designated to return. Wouldn't shock me. I think he's viable. And the truth about the Cowboys too is their secondary isn't bad, but it's definitely propped up by their pass rush as well. And we saw the last 2 weeks, they have 1 sack combined against Houston and Jacksonville, a game they almost lost at home against Houston. Houston put up 23 or whatever it was. And then against Jacksonville, they went into, 27-27 or 24-24 into overtime.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence throttled them towards the end because the offensive line held up. If the Eagles offensive line holds up for Minshew, I think you could have a big game here at 4,800. And you don't need a Jalen Hurts 40 fantasy point performance either. So
no,
I'm with you. Let's look at a few other guys here and get a little granular with some of these options. Now, Josh Allen, this weather, I wasn't joking. Some of these guys, some of the people watching right now are in Chicago. Some people are in Ohio. They're saying how cold it is. I know it's freezing in Chicago today, like 4 degrees or whatever. Tomorrow is going to be a little warmer, like 8 at kickoff, 10. But the winds are going to be really, really bad. Just like blustery winds, complete overcast, no sun at all. I wouldn't be surprised. First of all, I have the Bears +9. I took the 9 with the Bears because in these weird games, anything can happen. And outside of Josh Allen, it's not like Buffalo has a great running game. They may try to throw. He threw 30 times against the Patriots the other year, and they lost, and Mac Jones threw 3 times. But this game seems like one where both quarterbacks are probably going to have to run a lot because I'm not sure how the passing game is even with Josh Allen playing in Wyoming, playing in Orchard Park now. I think you're still going to struggle to have some success in this type of conditions.
Yeah, I'm a little freaked out if I'm a Bills fan, I'm going to be watching this game very anxiously because how many people have we seen get hurt at Soldier Field over the last 2 years? I mean, it is.
And MetLife.
The worst. Yeah, those 2 stadiums specifically are just the absolute worst. That's more of like a real football aspect. From a DFS perspective, you get the rushing upside from Josh Allen, but he's 8,500. And I don't know how viable he really is as far as stacking up with anybody other than trying to force Diggs in at 8,500. That's just a lot to be spending. This is probably going to be the lowest I ever am on Josh Allen coming into a slate. And surely he'll rush for 3 touchdowns now and just absolutely stuff us in the face. But there's no ownership going to this game, but it's more than warranted. I don't see how they air it out a ton. I also think just later in the season here, you don't want Josh Allen. You just saw Jalen Hurts ding up his shoulder. You've seen how many guys get hurt just, with fluke moves, just knees and things on fields like this. I want to be a little bit apprehensive with Josh Allen if I'm calling plays there for Buffalo. I think you can probably still sneak out a win here. I like the +9. I think that's something that I might add to my card as well. But Devin Singletary, James Cook, Nyheim Hines now starting to mix in to get work. I think the Buffalo Bills, this is the most unintriguing spot I can think of in the last 2 years to be playing them.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Other than that Patriots game.
Oh, well, yeah, that's such an outlier. That Patriots game was wild.
And it was a showdown slate. We had no choice.
Yeah.
But
I remember though. Hey, I remember I was checking wind direction at the stadium to see kicker viability. That was what I did on NFL Live before lock. I was watching the video and seeing which way the little things were going. And then I just said, we jam kickers, and the kicker smashed because downwind, it was just like a funnel to the field goal post.
Right. It was every other quarter they smashed because if you were kicking the one way, it was going behind you. Yeah.
That was a fun game.
I love bad weather games.
Stevenson
Everyone watching knows.
And Damian Harris combo. Oh, it was a smash.
Well, Damian Harris was crushing and then he got hurt. And then Stevenson came in and just smashed them as well. This is a fun week. It really is. But I think if I would probably, if I had to go with one quarterback in this game, I'd probably go with a 1% owned Fields at $1,000 discount because this guy is a maniac with his legs.
I wish so badly he had scored that touchdown on the juke to the sideline. He stepped off by a sliver with the spin move. It was one of the coolest plays I've seen in a long time. And we didn't really see that from him at Ohio State. He was more of a pocket passer at the time. They have kind of unleashed him and found a way for him to build confidence. I like what we're starting to see. Imagine them getting a star wide receiver in free agency over the course of this postseason. Look at who he has around him. Chase Claypool has been a failure coming out of Notre Dame. He was with Pittsburgh outside of his rookie season. Equinemius St. Brown was his number 1. You're going to have Byron Pringle, Dante Pettis, this Velus Jones Jr. has been a failure as well. Wasted 3rd round pick there for the Bears. Everything that I see from them If they could get a dynamic big play AJ Brown type wide receiver, there aren't many of those around, but you know what I'm saying. You get somebody like that around. Komet is serviceable as a tight end. I think you've got a pretty good base because you found out the formula. You let Justin Fields create for himself. He's very, very special. He is sacked at the highest rate in the entire NFL. So that's one thing he's got to fix, is a little bit of more pocket awareness, not just defaulting to running and trying to make plays every single time, but they are a wide receiver away from being another threatening team in that division.
The highest priced receiver that's going to be active this week, because St. Brown's out and Claypool's doubtful, is Dante Pettis at 3,200. I mean, absurd. Not great, but I'm with you. Komet might not be the worst thing. And hey, Buffalo's defense has not looked that good lately. They have not looked that good lately, and it's kind of surprising. I thought as they got a little healthier, getting Trey White back, but losing Von Miller is huge too. Yeah,
losing Von Miller. Tre'Davious White's been dinged up, and it just seems like they can't get everybody out there active and healthy at the same time. Yeah. It's and I feel like that's kind of the way some defenses operate, is that when you have such dynamic playmakers as what they've had at times, Von Miller, obviously a new addition to this team, but specifically in that secondary, there was some kind of chemistry that existed there that's just not there at the moment. I think the game environment probably tones it down a little bit. I think you can definitely play more towards the run against the Bears. And I don't think it's any surprise that the Bears don't have much to play for. I can't imagine they're going to open the playbook up to some crazy extent against the Bills, but I'm with you. It's basically going to be Justin Fields and nothing else from this game.
I don't know where you're at here, but I've talked about any of like the wild options, that just the really low owned ones, maybe a Fields that I'm willing to get to. Aside from that, I mean, it really is going to come down. I'm not too worried about the weather in Kansas City. It's going to be cold, but sunny, not a lot of wind. Still have a 49-point total. I mean, Mahomes and Geno Smith. Smith's cheap. The stack is so easy with DK Metcalf there. It's going to be popular, but there's always ways to get different. With Mahomes, the only question, and we haven't done a show together this season. I always ask whoever I'm on with. The biggest concern with Mahomes is like, how do you get the pairing right with his pass catchers, especially now that Hardman could be back and Tony's back, and you have Kelsey and you have MVS and you have Smith-Schuster, and now you have Jerick McKinnon hauling in 8 passes a game. Mahomes is clearly the best quarterback play on the slate. How do you play him this week in tournaments, especially if you're not 150, if you're not maxing?
I have like a very, very bold take about Travis Kelce this week, because I think he goes for 40. Like, legitimately. Have you watched
fantasy
the
points,
Seattle
not 40
Seahawks?
Yards.
What?
40 fantasy points, not 40 yards, right?
Yeah, no, we're talking 150 and 2 kind of territory,
gotcha,
202. This is the 29th ranked defense in PFF grading. And if you watch the Seahawks all season long, they've been blessed by God to be competitive in a lot of these spots. I'm a big believer. I know Ben Raza has kind of been on the same train as me, where everything I understand about the game of football, like, the Seahawks are atrocious when it comes to defending the tight end, when it comes to defending pass plays. They just can't do anything. And this feels like a spot, again, with Kansas City, you're just trying to the AFC is just a little bit more wide open towards that top spot in the last 3 games of the season. I think Philadelphia, I think Minshew does a good job. I think they end up winning that game in Dallas this week, but that's a different conversation for a different show. This is DFS, and Travis Kelce, I mean, he has been targeted, 10 against Houston, 10 against Jet. They just haven't unleashed him yet. I think that it just becomes kind of alpha territory as you're coming into the playoffs here. And I think Kansas City really, really showcases in this spot against Seattle, against just a putrid defense. You do have Kadarius Toney, who's getting healthier, but he basically played entirely on special teams last game. I think he played like 6% of the snaps out of there. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was somebody I was gigantically high on. His target rate per routes run is just a joke. Watson and Sky Moore playing under 30% of snaps. Justin Watson was playing a lot more snaps and then just basically didn't see the field against Houston out of nowhere. And Juju Smith-Schuster, you can kind of mix him in considering the target share he's had, but he's at 5,800. And I think you could just go to the single where it's Travis Kelce getting absolutely everything at the goal line, which we've seen multiple weeks where he had that 3-touchdown game against the Chargers, against Jacksonville. There is no defense that Seattle has to stop the run, but like Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, it's kind of been a 1-2 deal. I think McKinnon's somebody I'll continue to stack along with a little bit of Patrick Mahomes too, but like Travis Kelce is going to annihilate Seattle this weekend.
Would you consider running naked Mahomes lineups out there?
No.
Okay.
No. That's asking for a very specific type thing. And also because
I don't know if it is.
Really?
I mean, how many games have we seen this year where Mahomes has a big game and no one else in that offense is necessary? I feel like a decent amount.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to do it. I
If
also
he wasn't
think like if you're trying
8,400, yeah, I get that logic. I think for me, it's just that I'm interested in stacking Cousins like everybody else is, Dak Prescott like everybody else is. Brock Purdy we'll talk about against Washington as well. Shout out Iowa State, my guy, my absolute dude. Excited to watch him again this weekend. That Washington game I think has sneaky shootout potential, in fact. But I'm looking at Gardner Minshew as a guy that it's like so clear cut that I should be playing a lot of him at this current ownership that I can't imagine that I would play Patrick Mahomes and get 35 from him and feel like, oh, I want to have him unstacked. I think Gardner Minshew, if I got 25 and you had the AJ Brown and Devonta Smith come along for the ride, I don't know. Maybe I need to reconsider that. But yeah, it's so hard to get the other pieces in your lineup right if Mahomes goes off. Like I would want to almost force another wide receiver option almost every single time.
For sure. It's just been so tough to figure that team out this year. Like who's going to, it doesn't look like Hardman's going to play though. So, that could be a little bit helpful. We'll see. But I mean, I think Geno on the other side is perfectly reasonable as well. I'm with you that this team is not impressive. They're still fighting for their playoff lives though. They're plus 200 to make the playoffs. It's still doable. Washington's got a real tough matchup in San Francisco this week. The Giants going up against your Vikings. So there's plenty of ins still for the Seattle Seahawks. But, with Tyler Lockett out, I just think it's pretty easy to look at this team and say, all right, you have a very cheap Marcus Goodwin who's expected to play. You have DK Metcalf, who already had almost a 27% target share on the year before Tyler Lockett went down. And then Noah Fant, assuming that he's active, I think he should be. Like, they're all just guys where if this game does shoot out, or even if Kansas City goes up early, the Chiefs defense is another one that has definitely been prone to giving up some big plays lately to some inferior football teams. I think Seattle, while they lose this game, they're double-digit dogs, there's still some firepower here. And if nothing else, I want plenty of one-offs from this team if I'm not stacking with Geno.
Yeah, I think, Geno, I just got done bashing Seattle. I'm bashing their defense. I want to be very specific about that because DK Metcalf is a dude. Tyler Lockett out. I think that definitely makes the stack pretty straightforward. The DK Metcalf needs to be a part of it. Now, we've said stuff like that before where it was Jared Goff and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. You need to play them together. And then what happens? The Millie Maker winner ends up being a Goff stack without Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it can happen from time to time, but feels pretty clear cut that I want to be playing DK Metcalf in those. I think he's going to be more of a run back option. If I do try to go Mahomes Kelce, maybe I just go all expensive and punt. There are so many different punts you can take shots on. Doesn't feel comfortable anywhere, but I think from San Francisco, Washington, there are a couple that I've got my eye on. There's not that we're expecting Noah Brown to do what he did last week. That was just absolutely absurd. And maybe T.Y. Hilton gets into the fray this week, but he's still at 3,600 in that Philadelphia-Dallas game in a dome. So I'm at least taking a look at it, but I'm with you. I think that Geno Smith, especially with how bad that Seattle defense has been, we've had a number of these shootouts, not just in the dome in Detroit, but a number of times throughout this season that absolute ridiculous Raiders game. There are so many times Geno Smith has really outperformed what I thought he could be at the NFL level. We'll see Marquise Goodwin probably in this spot too, be a pretty popular double, but I'm more likely to fire up Noah Fant so long as he's good to go. I think he'll probably end up being my primary double for that game.
Me too. Anything else you want to talk about at quarterback before we rip through these positions, these skill positions?
Yeah, we got to talk about Brock Purdy. That's the last one. This is the one spot.
Hold on, wait, before you do, we both agree that the Minnesota game, ripe for DFS conditions. We don't need to dive too. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's probably the easiest one to break down. Daniel Jones, he's fifth in terms of rushing yards per game amongst the quarterback position. You've got Darius Slayton in the mix. They started to get a healthier wide receiver room. And don't forget, Daniel Bellinger healthy now too after that ridiculous eye injury. 3,300. He's cheap, makes for a guy that you could actually double with it. Probably not going to play Saquon Barkley alongside Daniel Jones. That's kind of one thing I want to stay away from in that game. More than likely, if they're capturing the rushing upside, it's going to come from one of them, even though there have been games or times throughout the tenure for both of them where they've gone off in the same spot. But Minnesota side, come on. I mean, Justin Jefferson, you can throw Adam Thielen in there. KJ Osborne showed out in massive come from behind mode. I don't want to overreact to one game for KJ Osborne, but that's kind of what I thought he had the potential of being for my football team. I didn't see 16 targets coming out of that one, but massive price spike, which is really, really good, kind of keeps it in check. But it's TJ Hawkinson. It's obviously Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, rightfully so, probably going to be the most popular quarterback on the slate.
All right. So I won't ignore this. You said Brock Purdy is.
I did. Brock Purdy's awesome. This dude's awesome.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Look at Iowa State this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to play Brock Purdy. This is my dude. You don't understand. So Iowa State, the absolute GOAT quarterback of Iowa State, 4-year starter, unbelievable run that we went on with him at the helm. We went to complete shambles, and it's 100% because we didn't have Brock Purdy on our football team this season. Breece Hall proved that he was probably pretty good at football too at periods in time. Not bad. Alan Lazard, over the course of his tenure, he definitely made more of a thing than what he's shown at the NFL level. So I'm saying Brock Purdy's had some weapons. He's played with some NFL caliber talent his freshman year alongside David Montgomery, then Breece Hall, Alan Lazard. You're going to be seeing a number of these guys coming through from this year's class. You're going to have a couple of Iowa State NFL guys that we'll talk about at skill position players. But the guy has always been a quote unquote game manager with the ability to show upside. And he showed it in college. We're already seeing it. And Shanahan quotes, I feel like I value them more than I value other coaches because he gets so much respect from advanced analytics community, from all of us. We talk about, oh, Shanahan, if you could start a team with one coach, it would be it. He talked about how ready Brock Purdy was to be a starter back in the preseason. And that is pretty wild when you say stuff like that about a third string quarterback. I think he has literally got the keys to the castle right out of the get-go. Even if you had a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo next to him, I think you would still see Brock Purdy as the starter for this football team based on what we've seen the last couple of games. You have Brandon Ayuk, you have George Kittle that he has definitely shown a rapport with. Shout out the Iowa connection. But then Christian McCaffrey, I have no problem kind of going to that stack and putting them together because he has definitely shown the ability to latch on to him. 10 and 8 targets in 2 of their 3 outings. That's the kind of stuff that we really wanted to see Christian McCaffrey have in this role. With Mason being limited, you're probably not going to see Davis Price active for this one. I feel really, really good about Brock Purdy just being a come along for the ride option in a decent weather spot. 5,500 still not cost prohibitive.
All right. Well, now we have properly set the table. You know what spots we're looking at. We can definitely clean up here, get through these other positions a lot quicker because
45-minute show, right?
Yeah, of course. But I do think you guys have a pretty good idea of where we're going now. Make things a little bit easier. Before we do that, shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Who better to talk about Prize Picks than Eric Lindquist out there in California? I mean, listen, even if you're going, I'm not sure if I want to play that. I'm not sure if I like the format. Well, you can try it, and in the process of doing so, get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So if you decide even afterwards, right, like you've deposited $10 or whatever it is, if it's 100 because you get up to $100 first match deposit bonus, you go, not for me. I don't think that'll happen at all because they just continue to improve and they keep getting bigger. But if it does, you're like, oh, well, I still have a free month of all of the tools at Stokastic for every single sport, football, basketball, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, PGA, whatever it is. If they have contests out there, we have all the tools from ownership to the boom bust tool to the top stacks, player projections, all of that. I mean, so say you're like, I prefer my traditional DFS after testing out Prize Picks. Well, good, because you'll have a free month, $140, $120 value of everything that we have on the site. But you love it over there. I know that much.
I very much love it. Today, 33x your money on a 6 flex pick. Now, hitting 6 of 6 on Prize Picks is still difficult. It's difficult at any sports book. You should not be parlaying at a lot of sports books, but out here in California, Prize Picks, that's how I get a lot of my prop exposure. And part of it is you get some of these fantasy scores too. And it seems like these projections are very, very low. You can literally cross-reference with our FanDuel projections, which is how NFL and the NBA are calculated in terms of their scoring. And you can make yourself a lot of really solid parlays. You can game stack. I've done that a number of times where I've kind of had, I want to have these 3 featured options together in a fantasy score thing. You can lump them together and you can have your quote unquote DFS stack. And it's really fun and simple to navigate. You can play NBA, NFL together. Lots of fun ways to be checking out Prize Picks.
No question. And unlike a traditional parlay, you still can 2x if you only hit like 4 or 5, or still make money back and sustain a bankroll, but give yourself a shot at big wins. Links in the description. For those of you guys watching live, the link is in chat. Check it out. Like I said, worst case scenario, you're not a fan and you still have a free month of all of our tools, full calendar month, 30 days. And join our Discord as well. Make sure to join our Discord. Take advantage of everything. Don't short yourself if you're going to get this opportunity. All right. Running backs. I do believe we get through these quicker just because we now know what spots we're looking at. You talked about McCaffrey. I think Houston's live to win this game, honestly, but I don't care because Derrick Henry is just in an epic smash spot. I mentioned the Aton on the betting show, and I think I mentioned it to Matt yesterday that I saw a tweet talking about how when the temperature is below a certain threshold, and I know it's going to be below 20 degrees, when it's below a certain threshold, running backs average 1.88 yards after contact per attempt, more than they do when the temperature's above that threshold. I forget the exact number, but it's unimportant because all of these games are fucking freezing. Derrick Henry is a freight train. And these guys have to tackle him in frigid temperatures, a team that he has legitimately produced 978 yards against in his last 5 meetings. I know he's popular. I get fit. The only thing I don't like is that with Dontrell Hilliard out, Ryan Tannehill was looking towards Henry more in the passing game. And I think we see that fade with Malik Willis, but you could still just have a monster performance here from Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Derrick Henry had Malik Willis at the quarterback position for him in week 8 against Houston. Confirmed didn't matter. It was an absolute smash, 38.8. Everything makes sense, over 200 yet again. I don't know how many times you can run for 200 yards on a football team, but another bet that's going to be on my card. You can't set this line high enough. Like that's really the problem. And from a DFS perspective, it comes down to at 8,600 is 25 enough for you from Derrick Henry, because we're projecting him right around that number. Most everybody in the entire DFS, as I look around the industry, that's kind of where his projection is going to be set at. Is that enough for you? I think on this slate more than others, it probably is. And I'm more inclined. It feels like whenever we get to Derrick Henry, it's, I got to completely fade it. I've got to just completely jam him. And there's no in between. I think I'm just going to be a little bit above the field on Derrick Henry in this spot. I think it just makes sense against Houston. I don't want to be fading 202 by any means, because that's well within the range of outcomes. He's proven that time and time again. But, 8,600, it's really just a cost thing. So it's not necessarily even at the running back position, because Christian McCaffrey is pulling a little bit more ownership, and I think there's paths to get to both of them. But it's like, am I going to pay up at these running back spots, or am I going to get exposure to domes where I can really get to the AJ Browns and the Justin Jeffersons of the world?
It makes sense. I think if you're going with Minshew or a cheap quarterback, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you can do both.
Correct. That's why Gardner's my number one owned quarterback at the moment. Him and Malik Willis. So I'll probably play some McCaffrey with the Malik Willis, or maybe I'll just take the double and just, expect Tennessee to run the ball 45 times.
Exactly. I guess if you're looking at some of these lower owned guys, I still think that Miles Sanders at single digit ownership is fine. I know you think they go to the pass heavy approach. Possible. It's also possible though, with a stationary quarterback with a pocket passer in Gardner Minshew, that they decide they want to run more, because Jalen Hurts isn't taking away those double-digit rushing opportunities every game. But also, does Miles Sanders, and I'm just throwing this out there, it's a tournament strategy show, does Miles Sanders see a little bit more involvement in the passing game as well? Because oftentimes Jalen Hurts can just take off instead of dumping it off to his running back. I think at that price, coming off a horrible game where he was unused, 8% Sanders is perfectly fine. There's a few decent low-owned guys, but none of the low-owned guys other than him and Dobbins, and I'm talking like 7-8%, none of them really stand out to me once you get down beneath there, outside of Nick Chubb at 3%.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is a guy that I'm struggling with a little bit, and I'm going to kind of default to you as the Philadelphia guy. because going back in time, I went through like his 2019 was his first year in the NFL. There were multiple outings where we saw 5-6 targets in the passing game.
Yep.
Can I stack Miles Sanders alongside Gardner Minshew? Because this is the thing I don't think anybody's going to be doing. And we have seen Dallas much more vulnerable on the ground, 24th in rushing defense, 133.1 yards per game in that regard. But I do really want to get to a cheap Minshew. And could I maybe remove an A.J. Brown or a Devonta Smith from that stack and put in Miles Sanders in a couple?
I don't think it's insane. The only thing is like he's going to run the same amount of rounds as Kenneth Gainwell. So, or around the same amount.
Yeah.
I don't think it's nuts. Hell, they targeted Sanders on a wheel route, like 40 yards downfield the other week, which he caught, but it was out of bounds. So I don't know. I guess maybe it is doable. He's run 36 routes over the last 2
zero receiving touchdowns. Like for me, if I'm looking at Miles Sanders, because going back to Penn State, he didn't really have that crazy amount of involvement in the passing game, and like 5 and 6 targets. I mean, that's stuff that you could see Derrick Henry have on an odd week. So like, I'm not saying that he's going to be some world beater in the passing game, but like not seeing any passing touchdowns, not seeing any kind of designs for him in the passing game, that's a little concerning to me. But as you said, you shift the quarterback, you play to the skill sets of your team. And I think that's something Sirianni's really been good at early on in his career. Like this has been pretty impressive to see him utilize Jalen Hurts against different teams in different ways. With Garner, I think you're a little bit more one-dimensional, but Miles Sanders is kind of like the guy I'm having the toughest time with on this slate.
It's tough. And I wouldn't be surprised, with the next update, if Sanders is even lower owned. It really wouldn't shock me here. I want to know though, like, what are you doing with Dobbins? This is a game where both teams clearly just want to run the football. I have zero doubt saying, I'm serious. Like I'm 100% when I say that Arthur Smith would prefer not to use Desmond Ridder frequently in the passing game. They didn't even use Mariota frequently in the passing game. And Tyler Huntley in this offense has been utterly awful since Lamar Jackson's absence early in that Denver game. J.K. Dobbins, since returning, man, he's looked awesome. He's the lone bright spot on this entire offense in the 2 games since he returned from the IR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be cheering for Tyler Huntley because he was the last pick in a best ball team that's still alive. I need something out of Tyler Huntley this week because, if I can somehow get past this Jalen Hurts in that lineup thing, that would be very, very fun. But J.K. Dobbins, I think the biggest issue I have, he's been very, very efficient. He's played very limited snaps still, not nearly like the 60% you would want to see from this threshold. And he's averaged 8 and 9.6 yards per game in his first 2 games back. He's looked explosive. He's looked awesome. I've enjoyed it. But especially with the bad weather, you're still Baltimore. I think they have one of the higher probabilities amongst. Let me find their playoff probability because I thought it was over 75% when I looked earlier. But I don't think you want to be running him into the ground. He's obviously had a lot of injury history there. I think Gus Edwards will definitely play as the number 2 complimentary back, even if he's not as good as J.K. Dobbins. And now the price has started to climb up there. 5,800. I thought it was a lot more appealing. You went from 4K and nobody playing him to 5,200, very limited few people playing him. And now, come on, 5,800. He's at a spot where he still needs to be effective. And we would need to see that snap share come up pretty significantly.
I don't think you ever will though, because they don't throw to their running backs.
It's true.
Maybe you will. Like
that's a tough ask for me then at 5,800.
I got you. But I would push back though on the whole making the playoffs because they're still live to win their division at plus 155. The Bengals are minus 200. So
get that home game.
What's that?
Get that home game in the AFC North.
Right? Yeah, I think it's pretty important, right? Baltimore's a nice place to play if you're the home team for sure. Sneak away with a win without Lamar Jackson would seemingly be beneficial. I don't disagree. 58's a little bit of a tough ask, but I'll tell you, man, if I were to ask you, hey, give me some guys you really like below 5,800, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that doesn't have some serious warts on the resume this week.
That's true. How good is Roquan Smith, by the way? Holy shit.
He's transformed this defense.
Oh, I mean, I could not like a football player more than I like Roquan Smith, and to get him out of the NFC North is so beautiful.
He's awesome.
So I will say, Baltimore's just going to try to pack it in. And if Roquan Smith can keep doing what he's been doing, I have no interest in the Atlanta run game on the other side. Algier had a great game last week. Very different circumstances here. He's still splitting Cordarrelle Patterson. I have no interest in anything on that side. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is probably the only player I have any interest from this game whatsoever. I'll probably land into a couple shares of Mark Andrews just because. But, I mean, it's just probably the most unappealing game on the slate. And that says something considering New Orleans and Cleveland is there too.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, though. This game, I understand that it's a low total. I'm not as, and I know you mentioned it right at the beginning of the show where you're like, yeah, we say play Nick Chubb. We don't want to play the passers in the game. I do think this is the one game, though, from a weather perspective, where I think I can make a pretty good argument that Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb are both in spots where they might both see like a combined 50 carries. I know that's a stretch. Maybe that's exaggeration. But Kamara had 21 last game. There's no Mark Ingram. There's nobody really to speak of behind Kamara outside of Taysom Hill. And yeah, you have Kareem Hunt, but they could have a real tough time throwing the football in this one. Neither of these guys are really popular either. And I'm assuming that's because the total is so low in this game.
Yeah, but that's where I'm more than fine firing up Nick Chubb and Alvin Kamara. I think those are going to be the only two people anybody have interest from in this game. I'll get a little David Njoku just by default. Yeah. I would be really, really pissed at myself because he's played, when he's been healthy, he's played like all of the tight end snaps. And they haven't gone to a lot of, so athletic, haven't played a lot of 2 tight end sets. You would think Harrison Bryant would share the field with him a little bit. Has not happened when David Njoku is active. So I'm with you though. Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, really the only 2 featured pieces from this game. Now, Eno Benjamin, he's been a problem. He's obviously bounced around. He looked serviceable in Arizona, got waived, then goes to the Texans. They didn't want him either. Does he get a shot? Does he end up active in this spot? And do they kind of take away from that? Do they go to a little bit more Taysom Hill than you would want? I think that matters more for, like if you can play him Rainmakers at tight end or something of that nature. You're not going to talk about him on this slate. But
FanDuel, he's tight end too.
Yeah, so that'll be a little bit more useful. I mean, this is like a Chubb more than anything else in this entire game. And then Alvin Kamara, if you see Eno Benjamin inactive again, I'll probably take some shots there too.
Any other running backs that stand out to you is just like, hey, because once again, there's a lot of them out there where it's like Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley in the dome, highest score. We know, like, are there any spots that you're looking to get away from at high ownership? Maybe McKinnon you want to talk about, or any other guys that just from a tournament perspective you think can be instrumental in helping you take something down this week?
I have this weird feeling coming off of, a Monday night game going Saturday. And what do you think about trying to make Antonio Gibson a thing? Like we saw Brian Robinson play very, very well, and San Francisco, they're touchdown favorites here at home. Talked about Brock Purdy, and I've been looking at Curtis Samuel as somebody who San Francisco has not been good against the slot wide receiver position over the course of this year. 6th most fantasy points given up to that position. And Curtis Samuel plays like 81% of the snaps in the slot. So I feel pretty good about Curtis Samuel as a run back option in that game, but I'm contemplating getting to like a 1% Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson looked really, really solid against the Giants. Kind of a weird spot there, but like, I think just because of where that ownership is on both of those guys, we're talking like 1%. I'm contemplating trying to make Gibson, who I think ends up being more of the pass catching back, come from behind back there. I'm trying to mix him into some spots, but that's like way, way off the board. I think like most people, it's hard to get away from the raw points you're getting from McCaffrey and Henry. I think Dalvin Cook, because he's in the dome and in that game environment, he'll come along for the ride, as will Saquon Barkley, but trying to take other shots on it. Miles Sanders is somebody I want to be high on. I'm trying to find ways to. And then keep in mind, Ramondre Stevenson, if there's no Damian Harris, or Damian Harris, if there's no Ramondre Stevenson, will very, very much be something that's in play for me too.
Yeah, even in a tough spot against Cincinnati, you got to pay attention to that because they're gonna run regardless for sure. All right, wide receivers. This is where it gets even more interesting because there are legit spots that you could just wipe off the map in this slate. Not even joking. Before we do though, I told you guys to wait. Right? I said wait on the 3 free days. Don't do it on. Don't be a knucklehead and do it on Tuesday when you're like, oh, cool. Okay. I did it on Tuesday. I got 3 days free of all of the NFL tools at Stokastic. Oh, wait, that only gives me Thursday. Well, guess what? It's Friday. So now you're getting Saturday, you're getting Sunday, and you're getting all of the updated stuff for Monday as well. But think about this. You're getting everything for Saturday, the boom bust tool, and the links in the description and in chat, by the way, if you wanted to take advantage of that. Legitimately free, no strings attached. If you hate it, you can bounce. We'll gladly refund your $0. You're getting everything. And that, like, you're getting tomorrow's slate, and then you're getting the night game for tomorrow. You're getting Sunday night or Sunday's games, all the showdown tools we have. You're getting Sunday night football, and then you'll still be able to look at all the stuff for Monday. When you're taking advantage of 3-day free trials, wherever you are, whether it's Stokastic or somewhere else, don't tell us. Don't piss me off. But whether it's anywhere else, take advantage of them on days where you have consecutive football. And in this case, we have 3 straight days of football, and it's the best time to do it. So 3 free days, baby. Stokastic Plus Platinum for all of our NFL stuff. Check it out. Take advantage of those tools. See if you can win some money, and then hopefully you'll stick around. All right. Wide receivers. How much are you going to have up at the top? Because Diggs to me feels pretty tough to get to in this spot, which I'm not saying you can't, but it makes Jefferson and guys like Chase and even AJ Brown here more appealing.
Yeah, you shouldn't. I can't get to him on this slate. I can't get to Diggs. I said it's just a weird spot where part of playing Diggs, I mean, I'm going to play him by himself and not take Josh Allen. And it just always feels like I played the two together. It's so hard for me to get away and just play Diggs individually at times. Just, it feels a little bit weird to me, but Justin Jefferson. Yeah. You want to be getting to Justin Jefferson. I mean, thank you to Philadelphia every day. I pray to the gods that happened to us, because otherwise we would have nothing and you would have
all right. Moving
everything.
On,
I'm just saying best wide receiver in the NFL, over 1,500 yards already on the season. Only 8 touchdowns. It's not like he's setting the world on fire in terms of touchdown regression. Like, he could expect positive regression in that regard, considering his red zone share. Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen over the course of the last couple of years has definitely limited that. Far less this season. I expect for there to be some Justin Jefferson massive touchdown variance type spot here coming very, very shortly for a guy who has just the best skill set in the wide receiver position in the NFL.
Yeah, there's no getting away from it. I mean, him, and I totally understand why Metcalf is pulling this type of ownership. Yeah. They don't have a high total, but no, it seems like you disagree with me, so we can go.
No, it's just one of those things where, like, for me, I'm playing DK Metcalf and Geno together. And the main reason, look at the quarterback ownership you have for Geno. You've got 8% for him. So the maximum amount you could have of DK Metcalf and Geno of the lineups you're competing with is 8%. Like, you're more looking at like the 5-6% of people who are probably going to play the two together in some regard. That's just quick math for you. But I'm saying DK Metcalf at 20%, if I'm going to compete with another 14% of lineups that are playing him as a one-off, that just seems a little bit broken to me. So stacking,
a lot are going to use him as a run back with their Patrick Mahomes stacks, who's the highest owned quarterback too, right?
Right. And that's where, like, our top stacks tool is so effective at helping you really visualize things. Everything needs context. And, like, I look at Seattle and, you know, they're middle of the road in terms of what their top stack percentage is, 5.1%. But I look at the QB ownership that's still on that page for you, 7.9% that is on that page at the moment, like 8.1% it's sitting on Cruncher. Like, it's very difficult for me to want to go up against a lot of DK Metcalf one-off type scenarios when that kind of play at 7K, like, no Tyler Lockett, you would expect DK Metcalf's target share to go up, but does it go up enough to justify in this spot? Sub 20 total, as you said. I need, probably 8-10 targets, touchdown. That you're asking a lot on the road in this spot from just specifically DK Metcalf. He's a physical freak. He's very, very good, but I'm more inclined to take half the ownership on a guy like Jamar Chase. Just pay up and get different that direction in New England in worse weather, or trying to make guys like, who else is kind of in that range specifically? I mean, you've got T. Higgins pulling 6% ownership.
Yeah,
that just seems like such an easy pivot for me to make when I'm just playing one unstacked individual wide receiver.
I get it. I do. Don't get me wrong. I see where you're coming from. I just also wouldn't be shocked if this is like a 16 target game for DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
It just like this is a guy who's already seeing double-digit targets more often than not. And he's also not one of these players that's like a gimmicky guy where you take out one receiver and now it's like, unless he's wide open, he's going to struggle to be the dominant alpha receiver. DK Metcalf is the type of guy that in double coverage can come up with a ball if you just put it close to him, within his 46-foot wingspan. So I do think like this Kansas City defense in the passing game lately, man, they've not been good. It's a spot where DK Metcalf could either really let you down, and I'm not trying to talk out of both sides of my mouth here at all. This could also, though, be a spot where DK Metcalf goes for like 40 fantasy points.
Pete Carroll, he's been better this season. Seattle's been playing to their strengths a little bit more. I think my main concern is Kenneth Walker going to be active for this one. DJ Dallas back. Travis Homer didn't really have to do much. He was the primary back, even though they had the Tony Jones start. He got let go. He was waived. And now Travis Homer, he had 9 carries. Didn't really get targeted in the passing game you might have expected in that Carolina loss. They've now lost a couple in a row here. I get worried that they're just going to smash the ball a lot with Kenneth Walker with no real regard for anything, considering there's no Tyler Lockett, who's been more of the reliable wide receiver throughout the season for Geno Smith. Maybe you're right. Maybe it just becomes a 16 target kind of spot for DK Metcalf. But I mean, Marquise Goodwin has been serviceable. And with Kenneth Walker and DJ Dallas back, something just gives me that weird feeling Pete Carroll goes back to the run game.
It's fair. Look, all I'm saying, I have a feeling this is going to be a pivotal spot where either you don't have Metcalf and you need him, or you do have him and it hurts the hell out of you. Like, it just wouldn't shock me at all, especially if
Welcome to DFS. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm saying there's often times where, like, for example, the guy last week that won the Millie had Travis Kelce. Didn't really need Kelce at that exorbitant price point. He had like 22 or something. Yeah. You could still get there where you need them. Or I'm sorry, where they're fine, but you didn't need them in your lineup. But then there's certain guys where you look at the top and every player has them. And then you look at the bottom and every lineup has that chalky player,
Yep.
So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of good options. I mean, Slayton's getting a lot of opportunities. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's getting a lot of love, 13% owned.
He's indoors.
God, dude, him, Richie James, and Isaiah Hodgins are all above 11%.
So gross, dude.
What? See, I'm not buying that at all. If there's one spot I jump off this week, is I'll fade that. Maybe not entirely. I like some Slayton. I just have such a tough time buying into this passing game, even against this dreadful Minnesota secondary. Like, just Daniel Jones, I think, has thrown multiple touchdowns, once this, or maybe twice. I don't know.
This is more of like Minnesota just has been straight up Minnesota of late. Like that's what it is. They're second to last in passing defense over the course of this year, averaging just an asinine, almost 280 yards through the air per game. Again, that's how you beat Minnesota. They're bad, but Minnesota's also had a pass rush. I'm with you. It feels a little bit wonky that you would have all of these guys pulling as much ownership as they will, but I'm definitely going to be lower on it. I think finding one, Slayton, I'm going to have as a run back primarily. Maybe Richie James if you really want to be paying up elsewhere, but the Hodgins thing makes very little to no sense for me based on what we've seen out of him. I mean, it's just another dude with a pulse in a dome, and they're getting a little bit of like we're in a dome bump. Like there's no other way to put it. So I'm completely on board with being lower on them and trying to make somebody else, because it's not like these other spots that are not going to be passing. Like I think that's where this Washington-San Francisco game is just so intriguing to me. I've been a big believer coming out of Penn State. Weird that, a team that I have no relation to keeps getting brought up throughout the show, but Jahan Dotson is sub 4K. He is one of the biggest physical freaks that exists in all of football. Like, he is going to be a stud wide receiver eventually. Not if he has Taylor Heineke throwing him the ball for multiple years, that's for sure. But I like what we've seen out of him. And at sub 4K, give me him straight up all day at half the ownership of Richie James. I don't care about the total. It's probably a good thing because they're in come from behind mode in these kind of spots. Dotson's the dude.
Does it not seem kind of weird to you, though, that Marquise Goodwin is getting less ownership than Isaiah Hodgins?
Yeah, that's weird to me. I would want Marquise Goodwin 100 out of 100 times.
Right? Like, we have him
the
as
third wide receiver option, the non-slot wide receiver option, Richie James being that. Like, give me Marquise Goodwin every time. That's a great shout out.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, listen, over the last 2 weeks, Hodgins is leading the team along with Richie James, 70 routes run. Slayton's at 67. It's basically a 3 receiver rotation here. I get that. It's still a passing offense for New York Giants, though. And Daniel Jones has, he's thrown multiple touchdowns 3 times, but he doesn't have a single 3 touchdown game this season. Maybe it's this week, but when Daniel Jones gets there, it's with his legs, and then he supplements that with his arm.
Yep.
So if I'm double stacking the Giants, even against the Vikings, I still feel like that's tough and I know they're cheap. I know the wide receivers are cheap, but you're double stacking, and you would think that Daniel Jones needs to do something with his legs. And if that's the case, every time he runs and any rushing touchdown he has is taking away from these pass catchers. It's a weird spot.
Yeah. And look how many teams are above him on the top stacks tool. We've got Seattle, Detroit, Dallas, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, Minnesota. We've got just a 4.9% top stack percentage there, even though they've got a pretty high rating in terms of what that game is because of obvious reasons that I keep regurgitating like everybody else. I find it very difficult to land on the nuts. And even if you do, all of these guys are pulling
That's
ownership.
Good.
It's just very, very hard.
It is. I don't want you landing on nuts anytime soon.
Oh my God. Okay, Greg, thanks, bud. Way to look out for me and the well-being of my health and my mental health. Oh, fuck. It's fine.
Any other options down here that make for tournament darts? I mean, mentioned
there's
Osborne.
Tons. There's tons of guys we can take. KJ Osborne at the ownership he's at, I expect that to maybe be a little bit higher, but we got to look at it. I've brought it up. Gardner Minshew, AJ Brown, 8.4%, Devonta Smith, 7.4%. Every single time. AJ Brown's that dude. Devonta Smith is that dude. I feel really, really good about that double. It's going to kind of make or break my week. I've got my big team right now that I just kind of hand building, playing around with some stuff. We'll have to see what happens with this Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris situation. That might dictate kind of how I do my last 2 or 3 spots in this lineup. But it is 100% locked into being Gardner Minshew, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and then on the other side at the tight end position, Dalton Schultz.
I like Schultz there, yeah. As the run back, that's nice. Eagles have been better in the middle of the field than they have in the past, but it's still like those outside corners are good. So you could definitely, and we've seen Dak Prescott carve them up with Dalton Schultz in the past. I'll throw out, and listen, these aren't guys I'm excited about, but Drake London had a 46% target share last week, understandably on low passing volume. So that's kind of skewed, or misleading, but still, like, it just shows you that you had a rookie 3rd rounder that was locked on to the best receiver in the offense. Does he see another 12, 13 targets and get you there at a cheap price? I think it's entirely possible. Last guy I want to ask you about here, and we have to do it even though the conditions for this game are awful for passing. I still have to ask you about Rashid Shaheed at 3,500.
Oh my God.
Well, just hear me out. You'll understand why I'm asking this question. Mm-hmm. Bad wins. Dalton's not very good. But Rashid Shaheed is now the number 1 option in this offense in the passing game. And he's $3,500 with Olave and Landry out, as ugly as it is. And I'm not saying I'm going to get to a ton of it. Don't get me wrong. But we have to at least discuss the merits of taking a $3,500 wide receiver 1 who has presented some ability to have big plays.
I don't know how I do it. I know he looked great last week. He was kind of a differentiating piece the last 2 weeks for people who landed on him. Flat 3K, 3,200 in week 15 coming off the bye. And there's Olave out, Landry on IR now. It makes sense. I get it. You still have Marquez Callaway that's going to rotate in. You still have Traquan Smith, who I think probably is going to be long-term your number 1 if you played this out 100 times. Like, Shaheed's have all of 8 targets in these last 2 games. He's gotten by on some massive big playability. Now, does the weather neutralize some of that? I got to think at least a little bit. I mean, Atlanta, they were at home in a dome. Tampa Bay, pretty decent weather there in that spot. I don't think I can do it. Maybe he ends up being the one guy at 3,500 who can have a big play and do whatever else. I'm just much more inclined. I'll take a little bit more ownership. Like Nelson Aguilar there at 3,300, I think just makes a lot more sense from my standpoint, where he's going to be the number 2 out there. He had a terrible outing against Vegas there, but they were able to get what they wanted to on the ground with Ramondre Stevenson. So you didn't see the 10 target type outing you had there. And Mac Jones was just flat out bad in that spot. Going up against Cincinnati, not much easier at home, weather once again, but I just feel better for 200 less going his direction, where I think the target share could just be higher.
Okay. I will say this though. He's going to run a route on every quarterback drop back in this game. He will. But
it's
that
the most
might be
uncomfortable click ever though, isn't it?
Yeah, because that might be 12 routes. Like that might be 12 routes that he runs in this game.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton dropped back 19 times last game. So I had to throw it out there because it is an interesting piece. It's not often you get a guy that has shown big play potential that is now the definitive wide receiver 1 after a team just lost Olave and Landry, Jarvis Landry, and the bad weather. It's a weird spot. All right. Wrap it up here with tight ends. This shouldn't take long. And by the way, we almost got 450 people watching with us on an NFL strategy show, man. That's good stuff.
Look at that. It's almost like, the little starlets attracting the eyeballs. What can I say? Let's go, my dude.
Get in the Christmas spirit and hit that thumbs up too. The one way you can give back to us is say, hey, I'll take a second out of my day and give back to these fine fellas who provide us with elite content throughout the week. Even on the eve of Christmas Eve, we got you covered. So take a second. Also, if you won 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and you said to yourself, motherfucker, I can't play Prize Picks in my state. I can't get that free month. Well, guess what? You can get 2 months, because if Prize Picks isn't available to you, BetMGM probably is. And all you have to do, this is the stupidest, and by stupid, I mean, like, I don't know why we even run it. We're actively trying to get it down to 1 month right now. That's not a joke either. It's just it's a process and red tape. All you do is use the link in the description or the one in chat. You take $10. When you follow the steps, it takes like a minute to sign up. 90 seconds. Take $10, put it on any game, any spread, you don't have to win. After your bet settles, you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, every tool, not just for football, but for every single sport we have to offer, including our premium Discord, 2 calendar months, no strings attached. That's all you have to do. And to sweeten the pot, if that first bet of yours loses, you also get all that money back in free bets up to $1,000. You lose 10, you get 10 back. You lose 100, you get 100 back in free bets. Eric, it is legitimately the easiest no-brainer known to man. I say that confidently.
Yeah, you just fire it up. Part of it too, we have OddsShopper, our partner program. You just want exposure to every single sports book that you can possibly get into, because, oh God, I hate this picture of me so much. I look like just what a loser.
I reference it every single time it happens.
God, like what is that picture? Like, let me know in the chat what you think of when you see that stupid ass picture. I feel like I'm getting poked in the butt.
I feel like you just finished doing a magic show at like the Excalibur in Las Vegas.
Oh my God, I hate how accurate that could have been for my life. But, still, BetMGM, you basically get the 2 free months. So you're watching a DFS show. That's what we're covering. But like, I know you guys need to be getting exposure to other things as well. And sportsbooks, the number one thing you can do to improve your ROI instantly is always shopping for the best lines. BetMGM has a lot of them. So when you sign up there, you get a bunch of free bets. You get another sportsbook where you have access to. So kind of a win-win-win across the board.
Yeah, man. And the best win is you're joining the Stokastic family for free. And then you just can make some money doing it off of $10. Who knows what happens after that? The world is your oyster. Link to BetMGM in the chat and in the description. We'll see you guys over there. And over at Stokastic, in the Discord, in the tools. All right, tight ends. How much Kelsey are you getting to this week?
A lot.
Okay.
I'm actually going to have a couple of double tight ends. So part of the way that this slate breaks down for me too is like, you think of short routes, you think of like temperatures being freezing cold and everything else, might be a spot where you get to like the Cole Kmets of the world in a terrible weather scenario, but he's even up at like 4K. I'm not even necessarily thinking about him, but Travis Kelce, 8K, that would be very, very prohibitive on a lot of slates, but because the weather's neutralized so many spots, I think it's pretty easy to talk myself into getting to a guy at his position who's just dominated from a pure raw point standpoint. And even if you get that one piece right on the bottom end now, it's going to be very difficult for him to beat like 22, which has been an average performance from Travis Kelce a lot of late. We've got him projected right around 18.5 right now. I'm more than fine firing him up. He won't be my highest owned, more than likely because of how much Philadelphia I am playing. I need to have that run back. And it seems like Dalton Schultz is just kind of falling into that position by default. Dallas Goedert, I will definitely have in the doubles as well. So I think those two in that dome are going to take a little bit more priority. But I said, I think Travis Kelce just eviscerates Seattle, and I'm going to be over the field on him. I'll have a little bit tighter tight end pool than I normally do. Sometimes it's just like, hey, stack up whoever it is that comes along with your quarterback. But because of how many limited quarterback choices I'll have this week, makes it a lot easier to stack them up with kind of the main dudes.
I'm with you. Kelce, I think Noah Fant's perfectly reasonable here as well. Too. Assuming he's active. If he's not, you could probably even look to Will Dissly because he's super cheap. Like Disley's dirt cheap in a spot like this. Would you play Kelce and Fant in a same lineup if you had Mahomes where you know that you're going to have to open up salary elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the number of games that you're fading from like a top upside perspective are so much smaller than on a regular 10-game slate. Like, think about it. Baltimore, 35 total. New Orleans, Cleveland, 33 total. 35 total. Houston, Tennessee, with like one player getting any of the ownership. Even Washington, San Francisco, sub 40 total. Like everything is sitting at or below that 40 total mark. It's so much easier for me to talk myself into doing unique things with these game environments where you're seeing these 50 totals, where you're seeing, whether that's the Giants in Minnesota or Seattle, Kansas City, which won't be perfect weather by any means, but 49.5 total is leading the board for this entire slate. So why not get exposure to one piece that is very expensive? Travis Kelce, you can get you tons of raw points. Noah Fant, if he puts up 13, 14, that could be enough on a slate like this.
I think you're right. We had a super chat from could be Travis, $28 Canadian. Thank you, man. Happy holidays, Laffy and Eric. Is Buffalo with a top stack probability of 13.1%? He's talking about our top stack tool. Already factoring the weather into the game. So it's factoring the total for sure. What is their implied total? It must still be relatively high.
So it's not that high. Again, this is what you're running into is you have 20 teams on the board. And Josh Allen is still Josh Allen, but he's behind Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes. That completely makes sense. I don't think Gardner Minshew is getting a lot of respect in our projections in any way, shape, or form. And that's something that, again, I'm kind of making a conscious choice where I look at the weather, the environment, and also
I don't
Gardner
think the
Minshew.
Eagles' offensive line and weapons are getting enough respect
to
prop up Minshew.
Yeah, there's no denying Jalen Hurts. If you made me vote for an MVP this season, he's it. Like, I would still vote for him. And I'm the biggest Patrick Mahomes stan, and I have been since he came out of Texas Tech. There's no doubt Patrick Mahomes is a once generational talent. But the things that Hurts did to elevate this offense, the way that he would play in different matchups, you look at that Tennessee game all through the air. You look at these games where he had 15, 16 rushing attempts. They just basically said, all right, it's like in basketball where you play to what the defense is giving you. They double team a certain option. He's like, all right, well, I have other weapons who can do things. It's not like those weapons just disappeared off the face of the earth. You still have AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and now getting Dallas Goedert back into the fray. It is a dangerous football team. And with that defense and with that offensive line, they are a Super Bowl contender. There is no doubt about it. Back to his question, though, 13.1% top stack probability feels a little bit high for me considering the 41 total. Everything is factored into projections, though. When we go through that, it's not playing football in a bubble. Everything is accounted for, so you don't want to double count it. You don't want to try to say, oh, something isn't being factored in, because I promise you, everything is.
Exactly. And with all that in mind, though, they still have the fourth highest implied total on the slate.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on that. I really am. All right, let's wrap it up with this. If you're Nostradamus here and you're seeing the future, the Millie Maker winner looks like what?
Well, please be Garner with AJ Brown. It's so weird because I don't like Philadelphia. It's just, I cheer
You like
against
money.
this football team, but I like money and I like good football, and they provide both of them right now. I want it to be Gardner Minshew, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. That would be the nuts. If it ends up being Dallas Goedert, I could see myself being all right with that. But I'm playing a lot of Dalton Schultz on the other side of that one. I've talked about that a number of times. I do think we're going to find one really, really off the board running back. I'm trying to think. I get this weird feeling about the Washington side of that San Francisco game. I want exposure to that football game in a way that I don't think is really being emphasized, because the weather looks better than it does just about every other place across the entire board. Jahan Dotson, be the dude. If that's Antonio Gibson, I'd be all right with that too. And then Jawan Jennings is somebody that at 3,700 kind of is a pivot off of all of those cheapies that are getting much more exposure. Your boy Shaheen, everybody else there. Jawan Jennings, a decent number 2 behind Ayuk at the moment.
And weather might be good there, but there's a flat earth style Antarctic ice wall known as the 49ers defense. It's going to be on the field as well. And that's going to be tough.
Throw it high and far to Jahan Dotson. He'll be all right.
Hey, man, fun doing this.
So fun.
Merry Christmas, dude.
Merry Christmas, my guy. Best to you and the fam.
Yeah, you too. And Merry Christmas to all you guys. This has been great. This is my last NFL show of the week.
I thought you were quitting on the air there for a second. That's like, hilarious. Jesus.
Merry Christmas and fuck off. No, I'm doing the NBA Deeper Dive with Adam today. Are you on Live Before Lock?
I am not. I've got the rest of the afternoon off. I'll be on NFL Live Before Lock tomorrow morning.
Sweet. So we'll see you guys. As always, follow Eric at Eric Lindquist, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Mike for producing this one. And have a great holiday. Merry Christmas, guys.
So he said, isn't Eric